Okay, that's fine. You are a Muslim? No, I don't think you are.
How do you know?
Well, I know you from the
Just
past.
because I'm white?
No, I've
because
seen
I'm
you in the...
white.
Are you a Muslim? You're so
No,
serious.
I'm an atheist.
Okay,
Where
so...
are you? Aiden, come here.
Aiden, please come.
Aiden, join us.
Join us, please.
How about you?
I am a Christian, sir.
I used to be Christian.
100 Christian?
How, what?
What type of Christian? I mean, there is Christian.
What do you mean, what type? There's only
Are you
one type.
Catholic or are you Methodist?
I
or you Lutheran?
am a Protestant.
Which type of Protestant are you?
Well, that's sufficient for me. Just
But there are
Protestant.
like 200 types of Protestants.
That's
so you
not
gotta
true.
Choose one.
That's not true. What's your name?
My name's Kyle. Nice to meet
Kyle.
you. And
Good to
your
see you.
name is
Arul.
Arul. Nice to meet you.
Great to catch up.
I
Kyle.
used to be a Catholic, so not
Okay.
anymore. I'm atheist. So.
Okay, so now we are going to work on you, Kyle. Okay.
all right.
So why exactly are you an atheist right now?
Well, I just haven't seen enough compelling evidence that God exists, and so I don't want to. I want to have my beliefs backed up by evidence. If I can't find evidence for something, then I try not to believe it.
So in other words, you're an agnostic, not an atheist.
No, I'm an atheist. I have a lack of a belief in God. I lack any kind of belief in God.
That's
I'm in a way,
you know what the word agnostic means?
well, as far as I understand, the way I use the word agnostic, not everyone uses it this way. I would use agnostic to say for someone who's not sure if there is a God or not.
Someone who lacks knowledge.
No, there's someone who's not sure.
Gnosis.
They don't
Lack
say-
of knowledge.
So no, an atheist for me, atheist means no God.
Yeah.
Right?
So
or lack of God. So I
No,
have a
no,
lack
no.
of belief in God.
No, wait a second.
Atheism, ism means belief, theos means God, a means none. So no belief in God. I have no belief in God, so I'm an atheist. Agnostic is someone who's
Kyle.
not sure, either way or the other.
Kyle, let's be honest here. Okay. Atheism is a disposition which claims that there is no God. It makes a claim. It's not atheism. An atheist is not a person who shows up and says, I haven't got a comment. No. An atheist is someone who shows up and says, I have a comment, and that comment is, I do not think there is a God. The statement do not think has a negative, I agree. But because it has a negative, it doesn't mean he's not claiming anything. He is claiming the negative. And so, an atheist needs to have a reason for why he thinks there is no God.
I disagree. I think the burden of proof is on someone making a positive claim. Someone who's withholding.
So if I told you I did not commit a murder, you think there's no reason that I could...
No, if I accuse you of committing murder, the burden of proof is on me, or on the courts, on the investigator, the detective.
Do you know anything
We have
about
to
the court of law?
We have to establish your motives, means, where you were at the scene, and we have to provide the proof. It's not up to us to find. It's not up to you to find proof that you didn't.
Yeah.
see what I mean?
Do you know anything about the defense lawyers? Defense lawyers.
Luckily, I've never had to use one in my life.
But
so
do you know about them?
I can't speak from personal experience.
But
I've never
you-
used one.
yeah,
So.
but you know that there are people
course,
called
yeah,
defense
criminal lawyers
What do
defend-
they do? If according to you only prosecutors have some work to do, what do the defense lawyers
As far as I
do?
understand, they dispute the evidence. So
Exactly.
if someone brings them evidence,
They can
they
provide
can say, well, look, he wasn't here at this time.
alibi.
I think what you're doing here, though, is you're conflating legal processes with philosophical processes.
No, they have some shared things. Okay,
No,
that's
I think
fine.
The analogy
Kyle.
is not really fair. For example,
Kyle,
in the legal system, we have all kinds of laws, requirements that philosophers wouldn't use. We're having a philosophical debate. Is there or is there not a God? Or is there not good evidence for
So
it?
do you
I'm saying
think
there is no good evidence I've seen, so my disposition is that I have a lack of belief, no belief in God.
And
I'm
that-
not making an active claim. I'm
that's
waiting
fine.
for you to make the active claim.
That's fine.
And
Kyle-
I'm willing to hear your evidence if you'd like to give it to me.
Sure. So, to quickly summarize, what I am going to say from my perspective is you are an agnostic, according to the right terminology.
I reject
but,
that. I completely reject that
but-
label.
but-
I think
but-
it's not a fair
but-
use of the word. I don't
but-
think that's how most people use that word. I think
but-
you're using the word in your own special way, which most people don't use it.
I've-
I call myself an atheist. I think an agnostic is a different thing.
What does
I
what does the
completely
word
reject
agnostic
your
mean?
label.
What does
I
the
said
word
already-
agnostic mean?
Like I said already, Arul, an agnostic is someone who's not sure if there is a God or not. All right?
And
They're
you are sure?
uncertain.
You are sure?
I have no belief in God whatsoever. I'm 100% certain. I
And
have
you're
no
sure
belief.
about that?
And I'm waiting for the evidence if someone will give it to me.
So, in other words, are you in a
But I
question?
haven't seen any. So for
Kyle,
now,
Kyle.
I say I have no belief in
Kyle,
God. An
simple
agnostic is
question.
Not sure.
Kyle, simple question. If an agnostic is a person who is not sure, you are a person who is sure, aren't you?
What I am is someone who tries to be open to evidence.
No.
Against.
Are you someone who is
I try
sure
and be
or
open.
not?
If I come to speak as Corner, and I try and be as open-minded as possible.
But that's not the question.
Someone has
If you're not an agnostic, are you someone who is sure about your disposition or not?
I am sure that up until now, my life experience, in my 26 years on this planet, in the time that I have been an atheist or called myself one, I have not come across any compelling evidence.
So you are sure there is no God?
Yeah, I am sure there is no God.
Exactly. Good.
No, but I am
for
open. But I am open. If someone, this is why I come to Speaker's Corner.
Cool.
If someone can come to me
So
and show me evidence,
that's fine.
and then if that evidence makes sense to me, I'm open to changing it.
Okay.
But that does not make me an agnostic.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of a good analogy I can give you.
No, that's fine.
Nothing's
Let's
coming to me.
move on. Let's move on right now. Jesus Christ. If Jesus died on the cross and if he rose up again on the third day, like it is claimed in the Bible, would that be good enough reason for you to understand that there is a God?
That's not good enough evidence because
Is that a good enough reason? No, I
think Jesus probably did.
Listen to me, please. Please listen to me. If I can establish that he died on the cross and he came back alive, if I can provide you evidence for that, death and resurrection, would it be reasonable for you to believe that there is a God?
I actually don't know. I'm not sure. And I say I'm not sure because of this. Someone dying and then coming back to life, you could then say that's evidence for resurrection. That it's possible for at least this individual, maybe not anyone else, but at least resurrection did happen in this instance. I don't think it necessarily follows from that there's a creator, that there's a God. So you might very much establish beyond a shadow of a doubt that Jesus died on the cross, came back to life. I don't see the link necessarily between that and there being a God. You'd have to explain that to me. That's why I say I'm not sure.
So I'm going to explain that to you. Why, if the resurrection could be established or if evidence could be provided for the resurrection, it inevitably follows there is a God. I'm going to explain to you why. I'm going to explain to you. You and I have experience in this world, and like us, plenty of other human beings have experience of natural reality. In nature, can someone die, be dead for 3 days and come back alive?
I'm not sure of any cases, although if there was medical evidence that this happened, someone say was in a coma or their heart stopped for 3 days and they came back, it would be pretty shocking to me. I'd be surprised, but I don't think it's common.
In the natural realm,
it's possible.
in the natural realm,
yeah, in the natural realm, I don't think. As far as I know, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical expert. But I don't think it happens. From what I've seen, it doesn't happen.
yeah. But so in the natural realm, it doesn't happen.
I mean, I have heard of cases where people die for a few seconds and then come back to life.
This is where I'm.
Dead.
This is
Pronounced dead in the hospital. Maybe they're even almost given a sort of treatment which requires them to be dead for a while and then brought back to life. Don't think this is common. I don't think this is normal.
This is where
This may not be how you're using the word death.
This is where my stress is on the for 3 days. 3 days.
So can you explain how this happened, or how it happened? If you can give me evidence that this happened.
I'll come to that. But you need to before I provide evidence, you need to appreciate that if that is historical, then clearly something supernatural was happening there.
See,
Something
for me,
beyond natural is happening there.
See, for me, I don't see any reason to believe in anything supernatural. I try and have a naturalistic mindset. I believe in nature. For me, the concept of supernatural.
What does the word supernatural mean to you?
Exactly like you said, something
Exactly.
beyond nature.
Exactly.
Beyond
So
nature. For me,
if
there
this
is
had
something
happened, if this had happened, it does not matter what your predisposition is. Irrelevant. If you are reasonable, you need to bin your predisposition and take up a new
I
disposition.
think once you start to be open to this, though, then you've got to give me your criteria as to why you don't rule out things like vampires,
I know.
fairies, ghosts, Spider-Man existing, maybe Santa Claus.
Absolutely,
You have to tell me,
Kyle.
what is your criteria?
Kyle.
If you decide to believe the Bible on this supernatural event, what is stopping you from believing supernatural claims made by voodoo doctors, made by mediums, made by Wiccans, made by pagans? They're using the same supernatural
Evidence is what
They're working with
differentiates.
the supernatural the way you are. So what is your criteria to decide what's true and what isn't?
Evidence for the supernatural.
So, okay, I'm interested.
Do you
to hear
know
what your
about any
evidence
other supernatural even with evidence?
is. I hear supernatural claims every time I come to Speaker's Corner.
No,
Whether
Kyle.
it's Wiccans, flat earthers, Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists. I mean, I hear even people who are not religious but have spiritual kind of new age philosophies.
Kyle, listen to your words carefully and listen to my words. You are saying, I have heard supernatural claims. My point isn't whether you have heard supernatural claims. My point is, have you got evidence?
For the supernatural claims. Like I said, I have a naturalistic mindset. I try not to think in the supernatural because I've never heard of evidence to support any kind of supernatural thinking.
In other words, so far,
The scientific method, as I see it.
in other words, so far, you haven't got any evidence for the supernatural
No,
events
I
that
believe
you're discussing.
my beliefs is that materiality is what exists. I'm a philosophical materialist. I'm a natural.
Kyle, I thought you were an open person. You wanted an open. You
My
were open to
disposition
new.
now, I'm open to hearing your view. That's why I'm here to talk to you.
Yeah, good.
But I'm telling
So
you
your
my
current
position.
disposition doesn't matter. I'm asking
Of
you.
course it matters. Are you saying my beliefs don't matter? I don't know why would you
Your-
want to have a conversation with someone if you think their beliefs don't matter?
No, what I'm saying is,
You're not interested in exchange of ideas. This is what Speaker's Corner is about.
what I'm saying is, your current disposition is not where we're going to stick to in the conversation. So my point is,
No, I have my beliefs and I'm willing to change them, but my beliefs are my beliefs and I'm bringing them to this conversation just
Cool.
like you are bringing to Speaker's Corner.
That's good.
We have to be on an even, equal playing field.
Sure.
I don't think it's fair to say, oh, my beliefs don't matter or I should.
Sorry, I do apologize for the misunderstanding. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying your beliefs are irrelevant. What I'm saying is, your current disposition may not matter if I can provide you evidence. So earlier I asked you,
So show me the evidence. I'm
good.
interested to listen. Yeah.
So evidence for the resurrection of Jesus Christ. We know for sure that Jesus died on the cross. That we know for sure through Christian sources in the Bible. You know, they were not Bible at that time. Multiple different witness accounts. Those Christian witnesses testify of his crucifixion. Christian witnesses also go on to talk about his resurrection, the fact that they saw him alive on the third day and going forward. Now, Christian witnesses themselves were testified to have been reliable witnesses because they were willing to even lay down their lives for their claims. And so they ought to, even in isolation, they ought to be taken seriously.
Can I say something, Arul,
Sure.
to that? There were many fascists during World War II who were willing to lay down their lives for their claims.
What claims?
The claims that the Führer is the only principle that we should follow, that Jews need to be exterminated. There were many Nazi soldiers during World War II. I'm sorry to bring up Hitler. I know nearly every conversation goes to Hitler eventually. But just because you're willing to lay down your life for a claim, I think many of these Nazis in Germany, many fascists in Italy and Spain, they were willing to lay down their lives. They were willing to throw themselves on machine gun fire for the fascist idea, for the idea of the fatherland, for the idea of all the people obeying one leader, one dictator. They were willing to lay down their lives. Now, for me, as someone living in 2023 now, does that justify their claim? They were very courageous to do that.
Yeah.
It's very brave to
Good.
die for
So
your beliefs. But it doesn't make the beliefs correct. And so I use that analogy with Christianity. Yes, there were martyrs, many famous martyrs and saints, willing to be executed, willing to be burned alive, willing to be thrown into the Colosseum for their Christian beliefs. And that is very, very dramatic. It's very powerful, effective storytelling. But does that make their beliefs correct? No, surely not. Just because they're willing to die for it, right? Now, I'd like to hear your response to that.
Sure.
I'd like to know what you think of that idea.
Sure. So in your example, when people, you were talking about the fascist and Nazi supporters and so on, but your claim was their willingness to die does not mean they were right in their claims. I agree.
Yeah.
I
mean,
agree.
There were Germans willing to defend Hitler to the bunker, to the very end.
I agree.
And it doesn't make their beliefs
But please listen to me on this and
I'm not
see.
saying Christianity is as bad as fascism. Christianity is much better than fascism. It's much better, no
I'm
question.
not even asking
I just want to
you.
make it clear. I'm not trying to make Christianity look bad by association with
Sure.
fascism. very different beliefs.
That's fine. That's
I
fine,
accept that.
Kyle.
I have no problem with that.
That's fine. So far, the point, I agree with you that people willing to die for their beliefs does not mean that their beliefs are right. I agree. We are both on the same page. But that is not what I was trying to say.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood you.
No problem. That's one step in trying to understand, getting close to what I was saying anyway, so that's really good. Would you agree with me if I told you that the fact that they were willing to die, even though wasn't evidence for the accuracy of their claim or the veracity of their claim, was actually evidence for their conviction in their claim?
Could you say that again in a different way? Sorry, try and say it. I'm not sure I understood.
Essentially, because they were willing to die, they held their beliefs so dear to themselves. Would you agree?
I agree. Someone who's willing to die, they must believe their beliefs very strongly if they're dying for the beliefs.
Exactly. The conviction.
Makes sense, yeah.
So the willingness to die is an evidence for the strength of their conviction.
Yeah. Yes.
Good.
I agree with that.
So in that regard, you can take the Islamic terrorists of today, some other person who is willing to die today for what they believe and so on. In all these cases, that point would hold true. That the fact that they are willing to die means their conviction is very strong. Whether the conviction is based on facts or truth is a different story.
Yes, exactly,
but at least it's strong.
Yes, I
agree on that.
Yeah.
Now, the difference between the fascist belief among the supporters of Nazism and the belief of Christians, there is a difference. And the difference is this. The Christian belief, Peter's belief, Apostle Peter's belief, Apostle Paul's belief, Apostle James's belief, and I can mention all sorts of remaining names and many other people in the early church and so on. Their beliefs were based on what they saw in their lives. Whether they saw or not, we don't know. But their beliefs are in their mind, according to their testimonies, is based on what they saw. Now, in other words, let's say, just to simply narrate, they saw Jesus, they were friends with Jesus, they saw him crucified, they saw him dead, put in the grave, and then they claim that they saw him alive on the third day going forward. We established earlier that because they were willing to die, their conviction was strong. And now I'm telling you that their conviction was based on what they saw, not what they imagined, not what they considered to be a good system of governing the world or so on. Whereas in the case of Nazism, for example, fascism, Nazism, I don't know particular examples that you have in mind, but their conviction, like we agreed, conviction might have been strong, but their beliefs are based on what they thought. Did anyone see any evidence to suggest that the Nazis are superior race?
No serious biologist today or anthropologist today.
Not just today, at any time, could they have seen?
Seen what, sorry?
So their claim is that
the
Nazis,
white race is superior,
their particular Germanic, their Aryan race, their claim was that the Aryan race was superior. Could you see that, or is that a claim in their mind?
Well, it was, for them, it was based on empirical evidence as they understood it. They measured skulls, they did human experiments on human beings. But you're right, there were a lot of presuppositions, beliefs in their mind. I say the same thing.
But could it? No, please don't jump.
Give me the example of St. Paul. You mentioned St. Paul. I'm going to talk about something you said.
But before you get there,
he saw Jesus on the road to Damascus. He saw Jesus. Now, what was more likely from the modern perspective was that, did he really see Jesus, or did he have a vision in his mind and imagine something like a hallucination or a delusion? We'd say nowadays it's what was more likely.
I'll give
the example of Joan of Arc, Saint Joan of Arc, hearing the voice of God. We would say today she was more likely to have had schizophrenia or some sort of disorder.
Kyle, you need to listen to my case right now.
No, I'm listening. Go ahead.
Because otherwise you'll just be repeating what you've already considered about this and reinforcing your ideas. I'd like you.
You said their convictions are based on what they saw. I'm saying what people see can be deceiving to them. You said that they saw Jesus come out of the tomb. Well, there were many cases during the witch hunts in England in the 1600s where whole villages, whole towns,
but the
would be
first point,
swept up in the belief that someone was a witch.
Kyle.
They wouldn't have necessarily seen any direct evidence, but they would have all convinced themselves that they saw this person do witchcraft.
One step at a time, please.
I'm giving analogies as a way of demonstrating the lack of coherence in what you're saying. Not attacking you as an individual. Attacking this, the standing in which you're...
Kyle, let me remind you what we were discussing slightly earlier, about which I wanted to conclude something. What you already gave the example of how Christian belief was similar to Nazism, fascism.
I didn't actually say it was similar.
Well, in terms of people willing to die.
I said that people are willing to die for their beliefs,
in that situation.
And it doesn't follow that their beliefs are correct.
And I'm trying to resolve that particular equivalence that you had drawn, and I'd like to make some conclusion before we deal with further.
You're saying there's a divergence. I'm not. Nazis would have seen a person who's non-white the way that a Christian would have seen Jesus come out of the tomb.
Okay, one second.
A Nazi would have seen that person and used their eyes
Kyle.
to
So
see
I
that
see.
someone was inferior.
I see you. What should I see you to decide you are superior to me? What should I see in you?
Well, what measure do you use for superiority? I mean,
I don't use any idea that I can see. Wait a second. You are suggesting that, like how Christians saw some stuff, you are suggesting. Kyle. You need to.
Collective delusion is a common phenomenon throughout history.
Kyle. You need to listen to the other person finish their point before you challenge further.
You're not letting me respond to what you said.
I did not even finish my previous point.
I'm happy to listen.
Did not even finish my previous point. I was unhappy with your earlier point that you rushed into this point into suggesting that similar to how Christians saw the resurrection, that the Nazis saw that, they measured their skulls or whatever you said, they had empirical evidence to say that the Aryans were superior. Now I'm a bit confounded that a person like you in the 21st century would even make such a suggestion, and that's what I'm trying to find out from you, and I'm asking this specific question. So question is, what is there you can measure or empirically, visually observe, or do any other experiment to find out, to figure out if someone is superior to someone else? Is there any such measure?
You have to first decide what is your criteria.
Exactly, but is there anything called superiority of you over me based on any criteria?
Not inherently or absolutely.
But based on any criteria, is there any measure of...
For example, I think, I would say based on this conversation, you're likely to have a superior knowledge of the Bible to me. I don't doubt, I wouldn't be surprised at all if you had a much greater understanding of the Gospels than I do. So you're someone who's come to speak as Corner to speak about Christianity. For sure, you've probably read your King James Bible.
Narcissism. So let me put it this way. So wait a second. Kyle, 1 second.
It depends on what you're measuring.
For a moment,
depends on what you're measuring.
For a moment, let's say I know the Bible 100%, you know 0%. Does that make me superior to you?
Not in everything, but in that particular regard, yes.
I am superior to you?
In that particular area of the Bible, yes, you are superior to me.
No, I know.
Not in everything else.
No, Kyle, please. You are clearly not getting the detail here. My point isn't, are there parameters on which you and I differ? That's not my point. Of course, you and I are very different in terms of height, in terms of color, in terms of weight, in terms of age, in terms of our parents, in terms of our family setup, in terms of where we are born. In all sorts of different things, we are different. But that is not what I am asking. Is there any of these criteria which make, in the sense of the context is Nazism, fascism, in the context of Nazism, where they considered people to be superior,
The
and by
fascists
that,
would have said yes, yes.
by that, no, I'm asking you. I'll come to you. My question is to you. They can say all sorts of stupid things. I don't care about what they said. I'm asking you because you seem to think what they said was sensible. That's what I'd like. One second.
No, I'm going to interrupt you.
One second. Let me
I'm
finish.
not going to let you finish because I need to interrupt you here. I'm sorry.
Sure, yeah,
I
go
don't
on.
like interrupting, but that's not what I said.
Sure.
I'd like to correct the record.
Sure.
I don't think what they said was sensible.
Yep.
I don't think that's. I think you're.
I agree.
I don't
Sorry,
know,
I apologize.
I don't know if you're doing it intentionally or not. I don't know, but
What-
I didn't
what-
say that they were sensible.
What I
I'm
am
not
saying
a
is
fascist. I'm
what-
anti-fascist.
good. So what
What
I
I'm
don't.
saying is that people's what they see and how they reason about what they see can deceive them. And I gave the example of witch trials.
So their idea that some people could be superior is nonsensical. Would you agree?
The idea that some people are superior to others inherently because of their race.
In their
nowadays, since we had the Human Genome Project,
No, even in their view, is nonsensical. Not
they
just in
would have-
nowadays.
They would have thought it was sensible. Yeah, they would.
Now, they would have
fascists
thought,
would have said
but
yes.
your
I don't
idea,
say that.
yeah, we
I don't
consider
believe
that.
you or me are superior to each other.
In other
inherently.
words, they could not have seen anything.
In specific things, I think you are superior to me. So, for example,
In
your
other
knowledge
words-
of the Bible, I have no doubt. I'm happy to say it.
In other words, Kyle, they could not have seen anything or observed anything that could have led them to the conclusion that some people were superior to others. To an extent, they could kill others.
The
They
only
couldn't
way-
have done that.
The only way they could have done it is falsely. But
Exactly.
yes, they could have. But
exactly.
Not through the right.
Only if they are nonsensical, they could do that.
Well, yeah. I mean, they were going on propaganda, ideology. Presuppositions.
In other words, they weren't dealing with objective reality. They were dealing with nonsensical ideas, constructs in their
I'm
mind.
saying that the Christians you claim
Coming to
saw-
Christians, Peter saw Jesus come back alive. What is if he did genuinely see that, I'm assuming you're open,
Did
you
Jesus
don't
write
know.
that- did Peter write that account? Sorry.
No, Kyle, one second. Before you challenge me, let me finish this. Now we have sorted out Nazism, fascism. We understand they are foolish in what they did. Therefore, they should not be. We understand their conviction was strong, but we also understand that their conviction clearly could not have been based on evidence, because that whatever they had in mind was nonsensical.
Well,
we can win that now. Come to the Christian faith here. In regards to Christian faith, Kyle, Peter saw Jesus alive is his claim. You may not know it before, you may know it, that's a different story. This is the witness account. Peter saw Jesus alive.
Which gospel are you going to specifically talk about?
Well,
The various gospels mention this, but which gospel is your...
I can use any of the gospels to mention this.
Okay, so I would just say to your viewers, and I would say to you as well, and now this isn't necessarily to try and stop you being a Christian, but this might even deepen your faith in a positive way. I would say, if you're going to believe sources from 2,000 years ago, as much as you believe yesterday's news, I think you need to take some steps to be careful.
Really?
For example,
What do you mean?
there are many accounts from ancient Greek historians, even from the same time or before, just after the books of the Bible were written, that give claims that today historians would say it's not necessarily true. For example, the battle where the 300 Spartans famously fought off the Persians, I believe it was the Battle of Thermopylae, if I'm correct. Or maybe I could be mixing it up with another one. My ancient history is not great. But if you read the ancient Greek sources for that battle, this is around the time that Jesus lived, similar time. The claims were that they fought off armies of far greater size than historians would now say was accurate. They said those armies, maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe 1 million people, 1 million Persians that the Greeks fought off. Ancient historians today would look at the evidence and say, that's, not necessarily true. We're dealing with ancient history. People take claims and they for dramatic effect, or for reasons of propaganda, they exaggerate, use hyperbole. I say you apply the same standards to the Bible. If you want to be rational, you want to base your beliefs on evidence, try to take the historian's perspective and question what you're reading. If there's a claim in the Bible, in Matthew or Mark or any of the Gospels, that Peter saw Jesus come out of the tomb, I say apply critical reasoning to that. Ask yourself what is more likely. Was there some kind of collective hysteria during that time that those early Jewish Christians might have been swept up in? Was this claim even true of Peter? Did did Peter really say that? Was it Peter who wrote that himself, or was that someone else ascribing that idea to Peter? These are simple measures where you can really try to interrogate and wrestle.
Yeah, explain. Take next
the
step.
Bible.
That's a question. How do you progress further on that question?
I mean, even Christian theologians today, many of them, as far as I've read, they don't say that the Gospels were definitely written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Kyle.
They question this, and I say, if you're going to use this as a belief that God exists, you need to be very careful.
Kyle,
As all I'm saying to you and your viewers, just to be careful. And these are sources from 2,000 years ago.
Kyle.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Kyle.
I don't want a monologue. Sorry, go on. I'm
That's
listening.
fine. I am trying to understand if you provide reason, not just questions. I'd like you to comment on this further. So you are saying that historical resources, in this case, in the battle of the Spartans and so on, there are some details of the historical resources which are inaccurate, is what you're saying.
For sure.
And
yeah.
therefore, you're
Yeah.
saying apply the same level of thinking to the Bible. I agree. I want everyone to critically scrutinize scriptures properly. I completely am on board with you on that. It needs to be done. I'm not rejecting that. But my question to you is, on what basis are you then going to say the Bible has to be rejected? Is that the conclusion you've
I don't
drawn
want to catch
immediately?
you out. The Bible in some ways should be rejected, in some ways shouldn't. It depends which passage you're talking about. But now I have to ask you a question. That's my answer to that question. Surely you should be taking this on faith.
That's not true.
I said I would
That's
encourage
not
your
true.
readers to...
Sure,
your
not
viewers.
don't.
But, you know, a part of me also thinks that, yes...
Are you asking me,
should
did
use
you ask a
critical
question?
thinking. Part of me thinks you should use critical thinking. The other part of me says, isn't this about faith? The whole point is not to use critical thinking. Faith and faith alone.
Are you speaking on my
I'm
behalf
trying to
now?
understand, is that... No, I'm asking you a question. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
I don't take it by as a blind faith.
Does
no.
not Jesus ask us to have faith? I mean, I'm curious to know what your perspective on faith and critical thinking is. Do they work together, or are they antagonistic?
Okay, so this is where many people misunderstand the word faith as given in the Bible. Many people think faith is where there is no evidence, you just believe in it. Is that what you have in mind when
Something
it comes
like that,
to?
yeah.
And that is not biblical. That is against the Bible. If you can read through the entire gospel accounts, everywhere it is about how Jesus demonstrated what he could do, and then asked people to accordingly have a belief or a commitment towards him. And so that's what he did to his contemporaries.
Ask for blind faith.
Nowhere in the Bible.
In the gospel narrative, he creates miracles as evidence of his divine nature, right?
Yeah, nowhere is blind faith asked for in the Bible.
I think
To
your family want to leave soon.
Ishik also.
I wanted to ask one quick question.
Sure.
Your lovely family, I know that's great you bring to the Speaker's Corner.
Yeah.
I think more people should bring their families to Speaker's Corner.
Yeah.
It's great.
Few more minutes,
I wanted to
please.
ask one question to you
Yeah.
about
Now,
something
before
more
that, but
political.
certainly. But before that, do you understand? Christian conviction is not based
No, I
on
accept
blind
that.
belief.
Thank you for that
It is
explanation.
not. We go with evidence, and that is what the Lord Jesus commands us to do. We critically evaluate, and this is where I was going to,
No, I'm very satisfied with that. I'm glad you set this position that you don't just are not a fundamentalist who believes.
No, I am a fundamentalist, and I don't believe in blind faith.
In the sense of not believing in blind faith, right? But now I wanted to ask you something. I came as interested. Where are you from originally, if you don't mind me asking?
From India.
What do you think? This is kind of changing the topic a little bit. What do you think of the Indian government's treatment of Christians, Muslims, non-Hindus?
Abhorrent.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to get your opinion. Why do you think this is happening, and what?
Well, unfortunately, again, some people, in the case of what's happening right there, right now, like
It's
you.
not just Christians, it's Muslims, and I believe it's other minorities as
I
well.
know.
Just anyone who's not a Hindu, right?
That's true. So the Indian government's treatment, like you may know, is mainly by this party called BJP, Bharatiya Janata Party, which is an arm of RSS, not officially, because the way RSS works, the Rashtriya Swayamsevak works is they don't have an official connection. They have all sorts of under the table connections, and essentially they are a Hindu nationalistic movement who base their ideas on irrational, non-evidential beliefs, and one of their beliefs is that India belongs only to Hindus, which is an abhorrent belief, inaccurate historically for all sorts of different reasons. But they hold their blind belief, and accordingly they say anyone who is not a Hindu is not an Indian. Now,
Yeah, it's true. For me, it's dramatically at odds with the idea. When I looked at India historically, since the end of the empire, their beliefs seem to be unity and diversity.
well, unfortunately,
They saw themselves as a spiritual center for the world's religions. Every
That's-
religion, not just one religion.
it's very true. Unfortunately, in the eyes of the current government, Mahatma Gandhi is an enemy. I don't know if you knew that.
Well, how do they see Gandhi and his legacy?
He's an enemy. Mahatma Gandhi is an enemy. The current guys in
They
power,
denounce his
absolutely,
family,
they won't do it.
his teachings.
They won't do it explicitly in an obvious manner because they know many people will wake up if they do that. But they do that in all sorts of different ways. This is why they'll advance Vallabhai Patel. I don't know if you know the tallest statue that they built during their governance. Vallabhai Patel, not Gandhi, because they want to sideline Gandhi because the guy who killed Gandhi eventually belongs to an organization which is associated with the guys in power right now.
Right. Yes, Gandhi was killed by a Hindu nationalist.
Hindu nationalists, so similar
Do you think
sort
this
of
might
way.
have something to do with partition in the British Empire's?
And this has nothing to do with the partition. This has everything to do with blind Hinduism. Not every Hindu holds that view, by the way. Not every Hindu agrees with the party and government right now. Not everyone.
I look at because the reason I bring up the British Empire is because it's my main topic at the corner. And when I look at Indian
British
history,
I know.
it seems to be a history of great intermingling of beliefs. So the
British-
Mughal,
the
the
British-
Mughals brought their form of Islam.
The British,
You have Christian influences. There's even, by some accounts, the idea that doubting Thomas, Saint Thomas, went to India.
That's right.
And preached his beliefs.
the
in India.
British
There's
did.
even a Jewish tradition in India, as far as I know, a very old
Yeah,
tradition.
yeah,
And of
yeah.
course, the Hindu and the Jainist and
The British did very many good to India. So if you're studying on this, I'll certainly comment to you that the British were in no way the cause of what's happening right now. In no way.
No, I agree. I think we should never. I completely agree. We shouldn't blame all of the problems on the British Raj. I'm sure they created many problems in India, but not everything. I think you're right that this.
When the
current
British
leadership-
wanted to leave, about 1/3 of India didn't want them to leave. This is the fact
Well,
of
this
history.
is what they said in the case of the United States. When the United States gained independence from Britain, before it was the United States, when the American colonists, I think it was Benjamin Franklin very famously said, 1/3 in favor, 1/3 against, and 1/3 they didn't care.
Sure.
So if that happened in India, I wouldn't be surprised.
Kyle, but we need to come back to Jesus Christ when you have more time.
I would love to.
Yeah,
Arul, nice
but
to meet you,
maybe
my
some
friend.
other time.
I
God's
believe you and I have
blessings.
spoken already a couple years ago. You don't remember.
Possibly we
You
might.
speak to so many people. You don't
I know,
remember me.
I know.
I
But
very much
can we?
enjoyed our conversation.
Absolutely,
I have
me
to
too.
go now as well, but it was
No
lovely
problem.
chatting to you.
But can
God
we?
bless all your viewers at home.
Are you available? Are you available during
No,
the
I don't-
week for a conversation
I'll be
or
here next
something?
Sunday for another conversation. If you're
Sure, let's do that.
Thank you.
God's
Take care.
blessings. See you around.
care, brother.
God's blessings. Bye bye. Kuti, shall we go? Yes, sorry. Okay. Okay. All right. So, just to wrap that up, people are looking for evidence for following Jesus Christ. The fact of the matter is, for the crucifixion of Jesus Christ and the resurrection of Jesus Christ, there is plenty of evidence. Crucifixion, historians, Christian, Roman, Greek, Jew, non-Christian Jewish, non-Christian Roman, non-Christian Greek, plenty of evidence. And some of these other writers, non-Christian writers, also testify for the fact that Christians lived a life consistent with the claim that they saw a dead man alive. They testify of the Christians' conviction to this degree. And that the Christians from there go on to suggest to the world as to why they were willing to live as if they saw Jesus come back alive. And the reason they give is that they in reality saw Jesus alive after he was dead. In other words, going through all historical record, there is only one conclusion we can legitimately, reasonably come to, and that is Christians saw Jesus alive. The resurrection is true. Any other conclusion is not based on evidence. So I invite people who are watching the video of the discussion with Kyle to explore evidence. We'll provide more details in the days to come, but to explore evidence and to come to Jesus Christ. God bless you all. Thank you.